Well, welcome everyone. This is our second Wednesday, or Wellness Wednesday panel. We really like to bring up topics about all kinds of things like mindset and just overall health, physical wellness, and just things that make us more successful, not like directly in terms of prospecting, but they're always things that if we do not keep up in life, end up preventing us from doing the things that we know we need to be doing. And so we have a really, really phenomenal panel. And so, Christine, I'm just going to have you do a small intro, and then Mary Rose, and then Jackie. If you don't mind.
Hi, my name is Christine Hendricks. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I own AZ Pinnacle Counseling. I've got about 13 therapists that work with me. 3 locations. I'm a certified emotional focused therapist, which is kind of the gold standard for couples therapy. So I do a lot of couples work. That's my heart and passion. So yeah, I'm just here to kind of answer any questions you all may have about relationships. Healthy relationships kind of affect every part of our life, and so yeah, that's why I'm here.
I'm Mary Rose Young. I'm a physician. I was initially and still emergency department doc, but after seeing patients in the ER for 15 years, I decided I kind of wanted to work on the other side of medicine. And instead of seeing people when they come to me for their heart attacks and strokes over and over again, I wanted to help people actually change their lifestyle so that we could avoid those in the first place. Because when you look at our culture, we're surrounded by, a culture that does not promote health. Our culture promotes illness, basically. So I opened up an outpatient clinic called Sozo Lifestyle Medicine, and it's up in North Scottsdale. And I work with people there on basically getting off of medications, staying off of medications. I would do a lot of kind of long visits where I talk about from a medical perspective, medically what's going on, but then also a little bit of coaching as well in there. We have a little gym associated with it with trainers, so we kind of focus on the entirety of the person, because in order to kind of build people up to health. So that's what I do.
Hi, I'm Jackie Stone. I'm a certified NLP integrated coach, which is a very fancy way of saying I work with people and take a values-based approach to coaching. So often people come into the coaching world and start off with what's your goal before really unpacking anything that we might be carrying with us. So we do a lot of work first on releasing negative emotions and limiting beliefs to really allow you to move forward and gain clarity in your values. What's most important to you in your career or your relationships or your health and your fitness, right? Identifying that first in that area of life, and then starting to create who you want to be and what do you want to do so that you can have what you want to have. So really starting first with the mindset aspect before diving in to the things that you want to take action on to achieve your goals. I do work with a lot of realtors because, as everybody in this room knows, this job needs a strong mindset, and so often when we don't start with mindset, we end up stumbling along the way. So if we can control our mind, we can really control all aspects of our business.
And for those of you, most people I think know me in the room, but if you were just meeting me today, my name is Lizzie Hofer. I've been in lending for like 20 years in Phoenix. At one point, I was like a top 10 loan officer in the country, and there's like more than 500,000 loan officers. So I tend to find that if you're successful in real estate in any capacity, it's because we are dysfunctional people. This job is one that requires like a very extensive list of bandwidth for emotions, a lack of boundaries, right? Being available like a 7-Eleven. And I found myself in a time point where I mysteriously gained 50 pounds and had face rashes and my hair started falling out. and I was deeply, deeply depressed, even though I had amounted like a gigantic amount of success. And so I've spent the last 2 years unraveling my life and figuring out what it looks like to be inspired versus fear motivated, and what it looks like to create a business that isn't centered around validation, but really just centered around like it's the fuel to the cool car versus like the fuel that I talk about and the car that I don't pay attention to, right? And so today's panel is really just kind of unpacking what it looks like to do that. But you guys came here for a reason, so I'd love to know from you guys what it is that you wanted to know, right? So from this panel of experts, like, or I mean, guys, let me tell you, when we say experts, like we're all just doing our very best. So from us, right, what would you like to know?
How to find balance.
Balance. Okay, so I'm going to write some of these things down. Okay, so balance. All right, what else?
What is balance?
Oh, we're going to go there. Okay, what else?
I want to hear more about mindset. Like, I'm coming from corporate. I just heard about this today. So I'd love to hear about that.
Well,
Boundaries.
boundaries. Okay. Okay, well, we might come up with some more, right?
Maybe like relationships too. That sounded interesting.
And I would say protecting your mental health through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, how many of you guys feel like you are currently connected deeply with how you feel and are in like a present moment, like in this room? Like you can feel firmly where your feet are on the ground, like how you feel like at all points. And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I remember hearing this concept in a mastermind, and someone's like, my superpower is I feel my feet firmly planted on the ground. I was like, what a superpower. It's like, I can prospect, watch this. But then I like started thinking about that like perception about what it feels like to feel firmly planted on the ground, what it feels like to feel my body, and then realize in that moment that I had, like, we go in, have you ever driven somewhere and then all of a sudden you're like there, and you're like, wait, did I teleport? Like, how did I get here? Like, what? I can't believe I just drove a vehicle, right? And that's kind of how I was living life. So if that's you, just go ahead and make a note, because a lot of times we're operating on patterns or systems that we're unaware of. And I'd love to hear, just like from every one of the panelists, like, just how does that present itself, like, in the body? How does it, like, and then also, how many of you guys feel stressed out more than one time during the day in real estate? Okay, that should be all of you. You don't feel stressed out more than one time?
Stress management, maybe?
Well, okay. Not in this time frame, but last year, I would wake up and feel stressed out and check my phone. I'd go to bed stressed out, check my phone. Okay, so like I'd love to hear from you, like what stress does in the body, and then how, like, some unconscious thoughts, and then how we treat our family members when we're operating under these levels of stress, right? So just from because I'm the kind of person that has to be convinced why something is important, and the easiest way to convince myself is when there is a physical ailment in my body, right? Like, it's like, oh no, I've got this, and how did I get this? So I'd love to start with the logic sense first.
Well, I'd say that in general with stress, when you're stressed out, it affects your body in so many ways. Like, some people just feel like it's a mental thing, but it's really a physical, like top to bottom sort of reaction. A lot of times when you're stressed, your cortisol is elevated, and you're in this fight or flight mode. And back in the day, that we used to feel stress in that fight or flight mode when you're running from the bear because you live out in the forest. And so that stress response is a good response, and it gears everything up in your body in order to, you know, keep yourself alive when you're running from the bear. But now we're in this state where we're constantly in a state of stress from, you know, dawn till dusk, and we don't have that rest period. So stress is not necessarily a bad thing. There's some, you know, there's a good purpose behind stress. But when you're stressed constantly from morning till night, it takes its toll on your body. You know, and everything from, you know, basically when you're stressed, I see it very real time. People's blood pressure is elevated. They get more acid reflux. They're, you know, your gut health is really related to your stress. A lot of happy hormones are made in your gut. So if you don't have a healthy gut, then you're more likely to not have the happy hormones through your body. So stress is one of those things that it affects your sleep. That's one of the biggest things, and sleep also affects stress. So when you have lack of sleep, you become more stressed. So it's one of those things that basically can affect you from top to bottom. So it's if we can learn to not do away with stress, because it's not a bad thing in and of itself, but put it in its appropriate place, and have it in its appropriate place, and not constantly throughout your day, every day. I think that's a key. You know, that's key.
So one thing that I didn't realize about stress, because I was constantly stressed for, like I said, I worked in this industry for 20 years, is that being chronically stressed impacts your glucose levels and your insulin. And so remember when I said that I had hair loss and I had psoriasis, I also have this thing called PCOS. Okay, and all of those things are a result of insulin resistance. And what ended up happening is I felt very terrible all the time. And so, like, she was talking about, like, this snowball avalanche, right, where it's like it's a little problem, but then it's bigger and bigger and bigger. And, like, I thought it was like 2 weeks worth of bad sleep is like the equivalent, like if they tested your blood sugar, you're already pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
And so I want you guys to pay attention to that, because a lot of us, like, we're very sedentary. Think about it. We're like driving or behind a desk. We're not really moving. And what does that look like in terms of, like, your overall health? And when we go to the doctor, just know that a lot of doctors are not like her. They just give you, like, your range, and if you fall somewhere within the range, you're fine, because they treat issues. Like, so unless you have an actual issue that requires you to go to the hospital or requires medication, they're not going to tell you what optimal health is. And, like, this is your barometers, because, like, I found out I was pre-diabetic at 40. Well, by 60, I'm going to have type 2 diabetes. And it's not because I'm, like, weigh a ton of weight or I'm eating a bunch of sugar. It's because I'm highly stressed and I'm not getting good sleep. And, like, if somebody told me that at 40, how much life would that have prevented? Plus, is anything worth type 2 diabetes? No. Right? And so just really important stuff. This is all stuff I ended up learning due to my life crisis.
So after hearing those list of things, wouldn't you agree that you'd like to know how to control the stress in your mind, but via your mind, right, over your body? Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you ever been angry at someone or something that you're no longer angry with or at?
Yeah.
Okay. How long did it take you to get over your anger for that person or that event? Yeah. Shout out some. Give me some time frame.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Month, year,
Years.
Still
mad at you.
Okay, let me ask it in this way. Once you made the decision not to be angry anymore, how quickly did you let go of the anger? Once you made the decision. When you make the decision, right, it's gone. We choose, and this is so hard for us to admit, me including, we choose to carry it. So if we go back to stress for a minute, what story are we telling ourselves about stress? Are you waking up with a state of mind, I'm so stressed out, this job is so stressful, I feel stressed, I feel stressed, I feel stressed. When we tell ourselves that, we believe it, and our actions show it, right? So if I'm telling myself, I'm a stressed person, that's just who I am, then physically your body is going to respond to that, mentally you're going to respond to that, and the people around you are going to feel the effects of that, right? So it's thinking mentally, what story am I telling myself? And like Mary Rose said, there's going to be stress in our lives, right? That's going to happen. And what do we do when that stress comes up? How do we want to handle that stress? What story are we telling ourselves? Like for anyone that's faith-based in the room, if stress comes in your life, you know, it's reframing like, okay, there's a reason it's here. It's something I'm going to learn from, right? What can I take away from this? I know this is part of my journey. And then really going into being able to anchor yourself into a different state. So,
can I?
Yeah.
So one thing that I think is so hugely important with this is because this concept is literally the key to everything. However, one component that I feel like it's like, why are we attached to that story? Like, what does that story validate? Right? So oftentimes we are mad and we can comprehend like what happened and like the surface level, like it broke my boundary. But the why is it important to still be mad? Or like, why was that thing important to you in the first place? Understanding what that is will prevent you from feeling that way in the future and or allow you to choose differently. Mm-hmm. Right? So it is a choice, right? And it is a story, but it also means something to you. Like it meant something to me to feel like I had a lot of evidence in my life for all of the times when people let me down in terms of a transaction. It's like, well, if I'm not the one following up on it, they're going to drop the ball, they're going to forget to follow up, I'm going to lose a client, and then so-and-so is going to hate me. It's like, right, it was just always this catastrophe-like thinking, and I had a ton of evidence for that, but truthfully, being the person that solved all of the problems made me feel important and valued, so I would almost seek out problems, crises all the time, like opening my email in the morning was like, what problem am I going to find? And even though I hate problems, like I hate the stress of having the problems, it also gave me my importance.
Mm-hmm. I love that you shared that, like, right, like a lot of what we do is go back to root cause and limiting beliefs, and those events shaped her beliefs.
Yes.
And sometimes those are things we want to have, right? There are sometimes we have events in our life that shape beliefs that as adults we're like, these are great, healthy beliefs. And sometimes we realize we're hanging on to beliefs that aren't serving us, right? And then we have to go back to, like in my field, the root cause. And so often it has nothing to do with what you're doing. Our values and beliefs, most of them, over 90% of them, are formed before we're even 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And it's never, like, when I coach people, like, my parents are great. I'm like, no, this is not to throw these parents under the bus, right? Everyone's doing the best they can with what they have. And what happens is, we form beliefs, again, it's so hard to admit that sometimes, like, we form beliefs based on what we're feeling and we're thinking, and it's only when we go back and are willing to examine that and release it and take away what we can learn from it, right? And to bring it back to, like, the stress and the feelings, there's a technique, right, called anchoring. I'll give you a brief summary of it, and then at the end, if you want to do it, we can. But just for a moment, humor me, and just close your eyes, and I just want you to think back to a specific time in your life where you felt confident. Go back to a specific time in your life when you felt confident, 100% confident. Step inside of that moment right now as if you're reliving it. See what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt when you felt 100% confident. And when you're ready, just step outside of that picture for me and just slowly come back into the room. Could you feel confident in that moment when you access that memory? Facial expressions changed. I saw smiles, I saw nods, right? You just proved to yourself that you can take yourself to a state at any time you want. So instead of feeling stressed, what do I want to feel? You know, when you put on a song or when you hear a song, it can take you places, right? What we just did, you could do with a smell. You can anchor a part of your body. We can get into that in detail at the end if it's something you're interested in learning more about. But the point is, you can change your state of mind. You're in full control. It's not always easy. We're human, and it's possible. Now, how do we handle it around the people we love?
I love this panel. It's so fascinating because we've got the body, we've got the mind, we've
got the wreck.
And so I would say my focus is obviously relationships, and then the emotion and connection and attachment. So what an attachment therapist would say is there's basic needs we need in life to survive. We need food, we need water, we need air, and we also need connection. When we don't have connection with the people that we love in our life, we literally feel like we're dying inside, and we react. We go into fight, flight, and freeze. And that's when we feel threat, that's all we have to work with. We're going to either fight, we're going to run away, we're going to freeze, or there's also kind of a new one called appease, where we just comply and do whatever that person wants.
That was mine.
You're the complier.
I'm a fawner. Yeah, whatever you say.
Yeah. So, this relationship stuff is really, really important. If someone took your hand and put it over your mouth and said, you don't get to breathe anymore today, you would freak out. You'd be like, and that's exactly what happens when we are in relationships that are not working. When we don't feel close and connected with the people we love, we literally feel like we're dying inside. I need some breath. And then when we do that, we kind of go into critical blaming mode of, will you get off your phone? Why are you always on your phone? That's actually a bid or please pay attention to me. Please connect with me. Please be there for me. So, if you ever hear your kids saying that, that's actually what they're saying. Mom, Dad, please pay attention to me. So this relationship stuff is really, really important to our mental health and our stress level. So just like the bear in the woods that is attacking, if we don't have connection with people that we love, we go literally insane. And so that's what I see in my office. I see the insane. I mean, literally burn houses down, burn clothes, you name it. I think it's really, really important to really focus on our relationships. What does a healthy relationship look like? I'm sure you've been in a relationship, either mom and dad or intimate partner or even your children, where it just feels grounded and connected. I tell people it's like putting a cashmere sweater on and a cup of coffee. It just feels so good, and so that's what we're looking for. And you can also have that in with your clients. If you're there, if you're engaged, if you're responsive, they're going to feel connected to you, and that's actually going to help your business. So it's just a little tip.
I love that you just said that about business too.
Yeah.
Right? Like the same thing, story, state, and action. If you're freaked out about the market right now and you really believe that about the market, whether you say it out loud to your clients or not, they're going to feel it too.
Yeah.
And that's so true.
So one of the things that I noticed the most of working in this industry a lot is I have a belief system about what the life is that I have to lead to be successful, right? So I know a bunch of you put boundaries, relationships, balance, we all wanted to talk about that. Here's what I'm going to tell you, right? I'm still a top performer. Success is very important to me. It's part of my value system. It is what makes me feel good. That is a story that I'm choosing to keep, right? And I don't want to be less of a performer, although I have boundaries with that now. So when I gave you that concept of a car, right, my life before was just a very two-dimensional. So it was work and my children, and then whatever I had left over was for whatever else was left over. Like maybe my husband got a part of it and then I got whatever was left. Like it was just the scraps. And so if you're looking at life, right, if you want to create a balanced life, just know that it's not balanced in every moment, right, but it's a fully comprehensive, multi-dimensional life that encompasses many things, right? And so, like, if your life right now is only work and only your family, right, which a lot of us tend to do. How many of you guys are mothers in the room? Okay, so so a vast majority, right? So our jobs, look, we do take up an extra percentage of all the work there. We feel that extra obligation, the kids come to us. So it's very easy to fall under that. But one of the easiest things that I did, first and foremost, was move my body first thing in the morning. So the easiest way to create more time for yourself is to wake up earlier, right, and to move your body first thing. I found that just having that one focused percentage of time that would improve my health. And I found that working out is actually better for my mental health than it is for my physical health, truthfully. But that one item gave me proof that there was a life for me too, right? It's like the very first step. So like, what's baseline step in getting balance? And then figuring out today, what did my life look like? Writing it all down, just owning that. What does that mean to me? And then if I could create, if I wasn't happy with this, right? So at the time I was very unhappy, workaholic, bad marriage, barely saw my kids, felt very, anytime the dogs would bark or the kids would scream, I would feel like my nervous system kind of crashing. Like I would feel like the lights were too bright, the sounds were too loud. So I wrote that all down, and then I said, if there was a positive opposite to this life, what would it be? Without sacrificing, I want to be successful, I like to make money, this makes me feel important, right? So if that was possible, what could it look like? And write this down. So there's like 6 different buckets that your multi-dimensional life should have, and obviously you can think of others, but it's like family, faith, finances, business, friends, health and fitness. Sorry, that's always the last one on my list.
None of those wasn't
Family, faith, finance, business, friends, business.
And health.
Well, I was just gonna kind of similar to what you're saying, but well, the first thing is when you're talking about balance, you know, we all have this picture of like a very even teeter-totter that like everything is all fine, and sometimes you have to realize like it's okay if you have a season in your life where maybe you're more focused on your kids or more focused on your work, but as long as that teeter-totter is shifting back and forth. Like if you land with the teeter-totter on, like you're always working all the time, that's not healthy. But there can be periods in your life where you're like, okay, well, I'm more focused on work for this moment, and then maybe next week I'm more focused on family for this moment, and that's okay, and just acknowledging that it's going back and forth. I'm still working in the ER, I have a new business, I have 4 kids at home. If I'm trying to find balance and trying to find evenness across all of those, I'm gonna just kill myself trying, and it's not gonna be possible. But there are weeks where I feel like I do kind of let the business go a little bit, and I'm like all in with my kids, and we have sports, and we have activities, and somebody's sick, and then maybe the next week I'm focused more on my business, and I really have to, like, I really need to go out and network more, or in the next week I'm like shift heavy in the ER. And so I think there's a little bit of it that you have to accept that there's going to be waves. But at the same time, going back to the 5 things you said, I've never said them in terms of like specifics, but if you can pick for yourself what are the non-negotiables every day. And so one of those might be, for me, it's, prayer, talking to my husband, it is spending quality time with my kids, it's exercise. And if you can just say, these are non-negotiables for my everyday, then it could be that in 6 weeks you have all of these things going on with work and everything else, but if you've taken time for those things every day, even if it's just a few minutes, even if it's just a little bit of quality time, then 6 weeks down the road, you know, you still are in the positive, even if, you know, for all of the time that you've spent with, you know, in your prayer or in quality time with kids, or the little things, and you get to choose what those things are. I mean, it doesn't have to be my things necessarily. You could say, like, I want to read for 30 minutes every day, and that could be one of your things. And then even all the overwhelm up here, in 2 months you will have read 3 books or 5 books or however fast you read.
I think it's important though is to get the visual. So like even when she was giving that visual of balance, like I'm going to challenge this thought for just 2 seconds. It's really work heavy and family heavy. Did you notice? Like even in our constructs of what we think of balance, it's like work, family, right? Did any of you guys think about your hobbies as part of balance? Did you think about your physical health as part of balance? Did you think about like your friends as part of your balance? Like these are things like as women, I feel like it's fucking work or it's fucking family. Like it's just, that's what it is. And like when I gave you those 6 buckets, it's because that's what a full life is. And when you're thinking about my fun life, it's like, what does it look like to not sacrifice your value proposition, but to fill all of those buckets, right? Like what, and you might not know what that is today. I had no idea what a hobby was prior. I thought my business was my hobby. It's not. It's what you do. It's again how you validate and make your money. What you do for fun, like you might have to go back and think of what 8-year-old, you know, I had to think about what 8-year-old Lizzie liked to do. It's like, oh, I like to color at that time, and I like to bake cookies, and I like to do this, and you start doing those things. But you have to be interested in yourself to have a life that is worth living, and that's actually how you establish boundaries. Because all of a sudden you have the concert you really want to go to, or you have the trip you really want to take, or you have the boyfriend you really want to hang out with. And it's easier to say no, but it's very hard to say no in a time where it's all or nothing. And also, like, we create these stories about how, like, if we don't get the client, we can't provide the life that we want for our children, right? Which is also, like, I'm sure most of you are out of survival and have enough, right? And there is a world that you can live this awesome freaking life and show your kids what an awesome life looks like.
I'll try to take like a different perspective because I like what you guys have said so far, and you know, especially Mary Rose talking about like prioritizing, finding what your priorities are in your personal life. So I'll take a business spin for a moment, mindset coaching wise, okay? So and since I'm licensed in the real estate world with y'all too, when we think about the activities that drive our business, are you guys familiar with the 80-20 principle? That 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. And in the business world, we have to think about, okay, what are our top 20, what is our 20%? What is our 20%? Because that's really where our priorities lie. And most of the time in real estate, right, our 20% to be successful in our industry, lead generation, lead follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals, script practice, right? Those are the things. So like when we were talking about non-negotiables in business, okay, if I take those non-negotiables and I put space for them on my calendar, because I think that's like a big thing I hear about. How do I schedule? How do I make time for all these things? Before you put in those business 20%, you put in the personal. So who am I? Like, I'm going to the concert this Friday at 5 p.m. That goes on the calendar first. Johnny has a football game Sunday at 10. That goes on the calendar first, right? I am going to read a book 10 minutes every day at this time of day. That goes on the calendar first, right? You put your priorities, personal priorities on there first, and then you put your business 20%. And then you leave space. You leave space. Everything else is not a priority. If you get to it, you get to it. If you don't, you don't. But these are the things, personal and professional, that are going to get you to where you want to be. And just like you're not going to cancel an appointment with your client, if I may be so bold, don't you dare cancel an appointment with yourself. We don't ever cancel on our appointments, so why do we cancel on ourselves so much? For me, it used to be because I used to think like, I always use I'm just gonna be honest, I always use my hair appointment. I'm like, when I call the hairdresser break, when I call my girl, it's like, Jackie, you can come in this day at this time and this day at this time, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm gonna make it work, because I want my hair to look nice. Like, I know it sounds shallow and silly, and yet that's important to me, right? So if somebody asks me, hey, could you do this on this day at the same time as my hair appointment, there was a part of me in the past that would be like, all right, yeah, and I would just cancel it myself. And then I'd feel anger and resentment and stressed. Rather than just saying, oh, you know what, unfortunately I can't do it. At that time I already have an appointment. Part of me felt like I always had to tell people what I was doing. Okay?
Yes.
I mean, like,
you feel guilty for having a
I
life.
have to tell them. Well, I don't have to tell them. I have an appointment.
I'm unavailable.
I'm right.
unavailable at that time.
Because if that was another client that you had an appointment with, you wouldn't go cancel the client's appointment to put theirs in, right? So it's just starting to like shift your mindset about that. Like, you're not going to cancel on anybody else. The first person you shouldn't be canceling on is yourself. Because I also used to be the person that you see, put your oxygen mask on first. Well, that's such BS. Why wouldn't I help the person sitting next to me? Because you can't if you don't protect yourself first.
And there's also a world where you can direct your time. Like, hey, I've got this time or this time. You don't even have to tell them you're busy. You got this time, right? And there's that world, right? So this is someone who feels empowered versus someone who feels like their power is in other people.
And when you're doing that, it's empowering to yourself when you finally realize if I'm available all the time, I'm the doormat, you know. Like, instead, you're choosing me and I'm giving you, like, these are the times that I'm available. And there is something that, like, built in your, you know, obviously you're a realtor, so you have to be flexible. And you have to, at Sozo, I do direct primary care. And so I'm available to all our members. So, like, they can call me at whatever time. But that doesn't mean, like, I tell them, like, you have availability to me like a friend. If I'm in my kid's soccer game, I'm not gonna step out to talk to you, but I'll text you back and I'll say I'll call you back in an hour, sort of thing. So I think that you get to put your, I don't know, like that was a tangent. That was like a total
It's okay.
tangent.
She's just saying you get to put your guardrails up.
Put your guardrails up where you want them, but if that in and of itself, you don't have to be available all the time in order to even while you're making yourself available.
So one thing I thought was really valuable about what both of them said was like the underlying reason why we do things, right? So I used to feel like I had to, or I feel like I'll text them back and tell them I'll call them an hour later. Like, I wouldn't do that either. And mainly because there's these underlying principles that I'd love for you to speak about why we do them. So like, I used to be the kind of person that never felt deserved of taking care of myself, and that comes from like deep childhood wounds. Right, but at some point in time, I had to like earn my love and approval, right? And so like if I had to cancel an appointment or like disappoint you, then all of a sudden my whole like validity as a human being, even as an adult, was in question. Like everyone, without even me being like real. And mind you guys, I'm like a 7-figure income earner. I run a huge, massive business. The fact that my like self-esteem was so fragile is kind of nuts, but it was. And so like I love for you, because I think that these, like, how does somebody really go there deep levels and be able to ask themselves the deeper questions?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I do with couples all day. So they come into my office, and I usually hear, we have communication problems. And then when I start they're not listening. So then when you start to really look at it, it's not a communication issue. It's a connection issue, but we've got these primary emotions. We have these primary needs that need to be met. And so when you start to peel back the onion layers, you realize the driving force of the behavior that is creating the criticism or the blame or the attack or the withdrawal is some sort of attachment need that it needs to be met, but it's not. So it's stuff like, I'm not good enough, or I feel like I'm going to be alone and abandoned, or I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, I'm not being understood, I'm not lovable. That's the like when you start to really deep dive.
It's like
that's
3 questions in, truthfully, and like 3 to 4. You're just like, oh no.
Yeah, so those are the things that really drive our behavior. You know, I mean, personally, mine's like not being good enough. You know, and so I'm like, why am I acting this way? And then when I start to think about it, and really it's like, oh yeah, there's that thing again, that I don't feel good enough. You know, so, and then when I can get a couple to start talking to each other from that place, you know, when you are on your phone all day long and you're not responding to me, I feel like I'm not good enough for you to give me some attention. That whatever's going on with that phone is more important than me. You know, and so when couples start to talk to each other from that way, then they can start to lean in towards each other and really connect and support each other and show love. So that's, yeah.
So what I think is so huge here is we do it to our kids, we do it to our clients when we're not even realizing. Another client will text in and we'll be like I found myself like on the phone with a client, someone else texts me, and then I'm hijacked by 2 conversations. And so like what has been very helpful for me and trying to be very aware is like, how does this person feel, right? So that person just said, I don't feel like I'm enough. I'm proving to that person they aren't enough by being on my phone. But I am on my phone because I have a fear that it's all going to go away. Like that if I don't answer this phone call, and I know that I'm not going anywhere and that person's important. And so like learning that we judge ourselves based on our intentions is how it works, but people judge us based on our actions and how we make them feel. And so it's like, okay, when I realize that I could be in a 15-minute conversation, because I literally had to be like, okay, well, what's my panic about? I feel like I'm going to lose this client. If I lose this client, I might lose the real estate agent. If I lose the real estate agent, I'm going to lose my whole career. This is like the weird, so if you ever read The Untethered Soul, like I have a crazy roommate inside, is my crazy roommate talking? But like, that was what it was, and so I'd have to go, what's the positive opposite? Can you wait 15 minutes for a callback? Like, can you wait till tomorrow morning for a callback? What's the longest period of time that I could stretch this out for this one person before they fired me? Like, seriously, I had to like, I'm like, okay. Then, for when because these are the important ones, seriously, like the second you greet your kids, not to be on your phone. When you walk into your house, never be on your phone. When they're dropping them off from school, never, like these inflection points where they like really get connection, where they really get excited. Like these are the moments that are non-negotiable for connection with your kids and with your spouse. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
From my therapist?
Yeah. And the cool thing with like attachment connection is it can be literally 2 seconds. It can be a hug and a kiss on the way out the door. You know, it can be a looking in somebody's eye and just saying, hi, how are you today? You know, that creates that connection and that bonding. You know, so we're not talking, you know, but when you have a lot of those little touch points throughout the day, it creates a strong, secure attachment of, I know that person's going to be there for me when I need them the most.
Let me ask, and this can go to the whole panel, what would you say about developing a secure attachment with yourself? So like I know my wounds, I know what's coming up in relationships, like I've learned a lot of this stuff and I love it, but I've found it's it's both harder and easier in a relationship to work on it because those issues are coming up constantly. Yeah. When I'm not in a partnership, I'm like, I'm good. I feel secure.
Yeah.
But those wounds still come up, you know?
Well, I mean, we do have to be in a relationship with ourselves. In the therapy world, we call it self-care. It's a super big, important part of what we do. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I'm not going to show up in the therapy room well if I'm not taking care of myself. You know, so it's kind of a little bit mandated to take care of yourself. But yeah, it's huge. It can't just be your relationship with yourself is a relationship, mm-hmm. right? So it's introspective and then out, and external. Mm-hmm. So it's both, yeah. They're both important, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like the same thing. When I've talked to people about that come to me that are initially, and this is actually a personal thing too, that I got coaching on relationships when I went. You know, I want to be a better spouse, and you know, you go through all of the release to realize, oh crap, I'm really here working on myself. And really sitting down and getting to know, like you said, from the inside out, like, who do you want to be? Spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? And knowing who you are, so that when you do get into a relationship, right, you have confidence in knowing who you are, and then it really becomes to, you know, for a lot of what I coach on are your values in alignment. Like, it is what you're both looking for in a relationship similar, right? Like, in values for me is a huge thing. I'll take like a 2-second tangent on that, but with values for the buckets that you introduced, we have different values for different areas of our lives, right? We're gonna have some that are overlying, like those core values. What I didn't understand was there are gonna be specific relationship values, and I thought this was so cool when you both started talking about like greeting and connection. For instance, sitting down and just talking with your partner, like working separately first. Hey, what's important to you in a relationship? Make a list. Like, talk to me. Like, I want to come together and have a discussion about our top 5, like our top 5 values that most important to us in a relationship. And I got my husband to do it. He did it with me, and actually we ended up with 3 of our 5 words matching. But when you follow that up with what does respect mean to you and why is it important, our definitions were different. And what happened in that conversation was, he said, well, respect means to me that I'm greeted when I get home and I'm not ignored. And I was like, because if I got home first and I was in a routine of unpacking and doing my stuff, in my brain I'm like, let me hurry up and unpack and do my stuff, and then I'll spend time with him. But he saw that as an ultimate sign of disrespect. I wouldn't have known that. We wouldn't have known that about each other if we didn't have that conversation. What values are important to you and the relationship that you have with yourself, and then you look at your relationship with other people and what's important to you and other people, and help build that bridge.
Cool. So this is something I'm processing in real time. I don't know if any of you dated after a divorce, but it's crazy. And so here's what I will tell you, is that like, if I struggle with codependence, so like a lot of my mood is dependent on how I perceive I'm succeeding at anything. And so if I perceive that this person isn't super happy, all of a sudden I'm questioning life. If it's like, if I perceive that I've done something wrong in work, it's like it ruins my day. Like, and so what I have really done is just like, so my trauma occurred at 8 years old. You know how like when you're really stressed out, sometimes you feel like a kid. However old your little kid is your inner child. Okay, so mine's 8. And so oftentimes I'll do like a child meditation where I'm like, hey little Izzy, what is this about? like tell me what it, and almost 100% of every time I am freaking out in anything that has to do with any kind of relationship, work or romantic or friendship, it is this fear of abandonment. It's this fear that I am not lovable enough for people to stay, and if I don't do things for people, I worry that I won't have any value. And so I've had to really put a lot of importance on who I am out. So like if I had no more special talents, if I couldn't do anything, if I could never touch your home loans, which by the way, I don't want to do, I've got all the home loans, how would I be valuable? And like, what would make me a person? It's like, oh, well, I'm funny, and I'm smart, and I'm stylish, and I have a perspective, and when I come into the room, I bring high energy. And it's like, well, but none of those things have to do with mortgage, or me running an errand for you, or me like building your bed. I mean, like, it's none of them have to do with that. And so like, just understanding that a lot of the panic that I experience in a relationship has to do with that, and it's not real. It's just the like what I'm perceiving, and then what could I replace it with, right? So like I let myself have the catastrophe thinking for like 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, the world is ending, but assuming that the world is not ending, okay, what could be the positive opposite of this exact same situation? And I normally find, at least I haven't yet find it to not be true, is that whenever I face whatever is giving me anxiety, it takes it away immediately. even if the result was the thing I was worried about. It's like, okay, well now it's over, now I don't have to anticipate the bad thing. It's like the bad thing happened, and then I can just deal with that. And so I think really understanding what would make you proud as a human without doing, even if you aren't there yet, gives you at least a roadmap for who you're becoming and things you can work on.
And I think a lot of like when you think about affirmations, you think about like the person looking in the mirror going, I'm good, I'm great, and gosh darn it, people like me. And like saying that over and over again. But in reality, you get to choose. I mean, to an extent, you get to choose like who you are and how you react to the world. And so I think a lot of when you're wanting to, when your initial thought is to go to that place, like to go to the place of the hurt 8-year-old, and like that's your default, is to go there and to decide like I am not, like that shouldn't be my default. I can't let this be my default. My default is going to be something different. My default is going to be I'm stylish and I'm loved and I'm capable. But I think a lot of making that the default is of like telling yourself that throughout your days. And so a lot of that, you don't have to sit and look in the mirror and say I'm good, I'm great, gosh darn it, people like me. But like find those things in your life that, you know, if I'm telling myself all day long I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed, I am going to feel overwhelmed. But if I wake up in the morning and I say I'm capable of taking on, you know, the tasks that I have today, and I am confident, and if you start like decide who the attributes that you want to be most prominent in your life for who you are, and you tell yourself those things and every single day, like it's repetition is good. So the more you repeat those over and over, the more it solidifies in your being. And the more that becomes your default instead of for me, the overwhelm or I do the same thing with the catastrophizing, yeah.
I find that I can't just like default to anything else, like my default setting is panic 8-year-old, but I do feel like I understand her more and I can compassionately meet her. And the other day I did this super cool inner child meditation where I got to be like, I got to ask my 8-year-old self like how proud she would be if she found out she turned out to be me. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I still get chills. It was the coolest thing ever. Like I was like, oh my god, she would be so pumped that I make this much money. She would be so pumped that I have 3 rad children. She'd think I was hot. She'd think I was funny. I was like, she's like so pumped right now. She's going, oh my god, this is how my life turns out. And there's aspects of it, you know, that make me kind of disappointed, you know, like I hate that I got divorced, oh my god. But then I'm like, but I get to show her how it ends. It's still not over. I didn't die. And then I got excited all over again. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I can't wait to be like, okay girl, you know, and like, I don't know if you've ever thought about doing that, but how, like I can tell you right now, your 8-year-old self is super happy that she's you. Mm-hmm. Like I can just look at all of you guys and I know. Like how fun is that thought?
I feel like this is a good time to like pause and remind ourselves we're all like, you guys are all here for a reason. Like, I mean, selfishly, I'm here to hear from them too. Like, I think like it's so cool to hear from other people. And something that I used to do when I used to come to events like this or classes is I'd hear so many things and I'd be like, oh, that's a good idea. I want to do that. 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 I just feel like this is a good time to pause and like start small to go big. Like as you're hearing all these things come in and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to do this, I need to do this. What's the one thing like that you're hearing today that connects the most with you that you're like, okay, I'm gonna start there. Just because we're hearing so many like great things. What's good for you?
I love your energy. I'm just obsessed with her energy. Do not like. I'm just like want to give her a big ass hug.
We're gonna hug. I used to be that person that like take all these notes and be like, all right, let's do it all. And I'm like, and I just defeated the purpose why I came to a wellness meeting in the first place. They told me I was supposed to feel stressed.
We got to overachieve our wellness.
Right? Like, we're like, hold on. So I just felt like this is an appropriate moment to pause for a second and just, as you're hearing these things, keep the journal and just one thing at a time. Pick the one thing that's gonna make an effect on you and an impact on your life today, and start there.
Can we hear maybe some ahas or some questions that you guys have? I love, by the way, that you were like so vulnerable.
Yes, thank you.
I love this stuff. So
We do too. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna can't speak for all of us at this point.
Okay. Let's go you and then.
Okay. So I'm impressed with all your work you've done and all that you shared. What was your process? We're going to. I mean, if you want to share.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure it's like therapy.
The truth, you guys, is that so July of 2021, I hit this breaking point, for real. I had a bowling ball size gut infection, and I was wearing maternity clothing because I was too embarrassed to figure out what it was, and I could not lose weight to save money. And when I say I look 7 months pregnant, it is not a joke. My belly was as hard as a basketball, and finally I was like, okay, I think I have a tumor. It's just so big. So then I went to go see a doctor, and he's like, you're really, your gut is terrible. He basically said I was literally full of shit. This is the thing. The x-ray. And then I went to, and then I was like, well, what's your advice? And he's like, well, you just gotta poop. And I was like, this is awful advice. I'm obviously not moving. So I went to go see a functional medicine doctor, and that's where it started. And they were like, I think you're depressed. And I was like, I'm depressed? I'm not depressed. I'm awesome. Don't you see this list of rewards? And it got me thinking, I'm like, well, if I'm depressed, what does that mean? And so I started going to therapy, but at the time, I just wasn't prepared to understand that I was the problem, really, and that I built up all of these defenses around this whole, very, very, Jenga-like tower of self-esteem. And then as I started to do more therapy, my life started to fall apart, because it was just harder and harder to reinforce the fake life I had built for myself. And then I felt like I was a total phony, and then it was honestly, I got suicidal last March of 22. It's called passive suicide, so I was looking for accidental ways to die, because as a perfectionist, you never want to be the person that commits suicide. But if it was an accident and people graded my life, I'd probably have a lot of people at my funeral, and I had a really great job, and I was married and had 3 kids. And so I just was looking, and so I got a little bit more aggressive about my passive suicide, and then had this wake-up moment where I was like, I think I'm really messed up. And then we decided to get a divorce, and then I just I just needed to stop. And then, in terms of therapy, guys, I've done EMDR, the deep child, the hypnosis, I was child abused as a kid, which is where all of this comes from, the lady who's getting arrested now, that was my life, plus some physical abuse. So it was really challenging. So where I learned to hate myself was then. And it's very hard, because look, I think if you were in real estate and you're really good, you had some dysfunctional childhood, and that's what we gotta unbreak. I just do. I've never met anyone who had secure attachment and become world's best realtor. So, not that it couldn't happen, I just haven't met them yet. So, I did it all, and I was willing to stop everything, literally go to nothing. I quit my job, honestly my boss was like, let's go on a medical leave before you quit. I quit everything to start over and then to rediscover myself, and who I want to be does want to be successful. I love making money, I love helping people, it's part of who I am, but it isn't all of me. And I'm not a homework. I'm not a stack of papers. I am a human being with lots of interests. And so being able to recognize that, literally, I have lots of boundaries. I have a freaking life I want to live. I have a boyfriend I want to meet. I want a life I want to have. Yeah, that's for sure. So, did that answer your question?
It did. I guess the thing is I've been in therapy on and off, and it's hard to, find the right therapist, in my opinion, to go deep. If you have it somewhat together on the surface.
Do you mind if I speak to that for a minute? Because I thank you for sharing your story, and everyone in the room has a story, right? And I can speak just from personal experience, background of kind of, I think where your question is going. There were things in my past involved eating disorder, self-injury, perfectionism, I think, you know, people's opinions of me mattering, like, you know, really feeling connection there. And for me, I went to like the nutritionist, I went to a therapist, and I saw multiple therapists, and I think it all comes down to like what works for you. For me, the reason I do what I do now in the coaching style is because the mental emotional release, like coaching worked for me, which got me to break through and understand where the root was. And going back, you know, in this timeline of understanding, okay, where did anger originate in the area of relationship or career? Where did it originate? And learning to release from there, because I didn't realize, it's funny, not funny, but in our world sometimes we say that, I don't know, you know, that you had mentioned not good enough. And I've done, you know, breakthrough session with release in career, and I've done one in relationship. And in my career, it was, I'm not good enough, which made so much sense when I went back to eating disorder, self-injury, perfectionism, right? And then going into relationship, and we do another, okay, let's focus on relationship. Where does anger, where does this limiting beliefs? And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, it's not good enough again? Like, this thing came up, but you learn to release it in those different areas of life. And I think it's just like, it's the style that you're gonna connect with the most. Like, where can you go and be open and be truly vulnerable and be yourself and be willing to pour it all out? Because if you go somewhere where you can't, where you don't feel like you can tell whomever you're working with everything, you're not gonna have the best chances of healing, right, by keeping it in. So just like in our industry, right, not every client is for you, or you're not for every client. I think everybody's map to who to work with is different, and that's why I would say, like, you know, those initial conversations that you have, like asking them things that are important to you, like interviewing the therapist, the coach before.
I also think there's something to be said with the fact that, like, maybe you're too high functioning, because that's where I was when I started my therapy journey. I did breath work as part of it, and when I was doing this breath work session, I started bawling uncontrollably, and I was like, what is going on here? And then I did sound healing, and then I started crying, and then I realized that my body clearly had more stuff to work out, and that made me curious. But what I was trying to communicate is I really had to be broken enough to actually get therapy. Like, my defenses were too up, I was too smart, like, and too disconnected from, like, my actual pain. And when my life fell apart, it was too painful to not pay attention. Like, I couldn't be disconnected anymore.
I'm sorry, what kind of breath work do you do?
This sounds really terrible, guys, but there's hypno breath work, which I know is really great. I just went to one of those, like, meetups where they were just doing the cry breath work. I don't even know what it's called. Maybe.
Very fast.
It feels, yeah, very fast, like you're gonna hyperventilate, cry, and then just, like, literally I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, oh my god, this, and then I had so much embarrassment for crying uncontrollably, but I'm like, I have no idea where this is coming from. So maybe do that first. Okay. You're like, maybe I do feel bad.
That sounds really awesome. Like, do that.
No, I've heard so many people do it and have amazing experiences. Maybe I'm nervous.
She knows
maybe
about
I'm
that
ready. Yeah.
The gal in the back, everyone,
yeah,
she knows.
Yeah.
It's the one that simulates crime.
Yeah.
Just go back to know yourself.
Yeah.
Like, all of our journeys and who we've gotten help with and who we have, like, you got to go where you're gonna feel, where you can show up yourself first, and then we all evolved on who we've seen and what works for us.
And try different things.
I've literally
Let's try a lot of different things, because at some point, like, you'll fall on the one that's like the most healing for you.
She actually touched on what I was going to say, and I just want to say thank you. I just started recently following you on social media. I've been through several meetings that you were leading, and I'm like, she is a powerhouse. And to hear your vulnerability is so empowering. So thank you. Because, you know, it's been a heavy year for me, and I can totally relate. So you're giving me inspiration here. So thank you.
I felt that, like, for real. Kristen.
You're gonna stay.
We can cry in this room. It's not
Safe
Did you?
I just wanted to say, good for you for being so vulnerable to people that you don't know. I mean, I'm brand new to this group, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing group of women up here, and I'm older than you, but I guess I understand where you are. I was kind of at your point probably several years ago, like my marriage was fine now, but it was other things. Like everybody has something in their life, right? Like how you were raised, like not knowing yourself, like mine was being adopted and just not truly knowing who I was and going on that journey. But I have to tell you, learning your boundaries is the best thing you can ever do for yourself, because it is amazing how much it changed the relationship that I had with myself, how I feel that I need to be with other people, the people that I let be in my life as friends, the family that you want in your life, the family that you don't need in your life, and what you choose or choose not to accept. You just know when to say enough is enough. And I did real estate for a while in Colorado, and it got to be where I was like, I am the yes woman, I am on 24/7, and I was flippin' miserable. To where I was just like, okay, it's my daughter's birthday party, but I'm gonna go out and show this house because these people are freaking out on me. And I'm thinking, and I came home and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, my child is my priority. My family is my priority, and then everything else is next. I mean, I was lucky, I guess, at the aspect that I didn't have to have my job, but I loved my job, and I started hating it, so I had to find ways to make it work for me. So good for you for being so open and honest, and I think this is just going to be an amazing thing that we get to all do together, and I like this Wellness Wednesday. This is really cool.
Yes. Yes.
This is really, really neat. So good
a
for
lot of
you.
work to put together. FYI.
That is the gal who put it on. Kelly, can we all give her a round of applause? I'll be honest, when she asked me to do this, I'm like, I'm not qualified. I don't think anyone wants my life. So it's really nice to be received this way. Seriously.
Do we have time for a little bit?
Yeah,
more?
we have 15 minutes.
First of all, I love your story and relate to it on a multitude of levels, but I was wondering if you could all speak around, it goes back to stress, but more on like the bodily side. So for instance, like I've done like hormone panels, I've done blood work, I've done all of that, but still had hair falling out, still was having gut issues, still, and I know like cortisol isn't really measured on that. Like I've started like taking supplements to like help with that, and
You can get a cortisol test.
You can.
I
Okay.
requested my own blood sugar test and my own
Okay.
cortisol test, and because once you start wanting to feel better, you got to do your own work and be your own
Yep.
physical advocate. And that's actually how I found out about metabolic disorder. And then once I researched it, I was like, wait, PCOS is insulin resistance, eczema is PCO. Like, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, not one person told me to watch my sugar intake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it comes back to, you can definitely get cortisol tests, you can get tests for insulin resistance and things like that, and those are all affecting your body.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think a lot of it comes back to, like, I do lifestyle medicine, so it's like, what is going on in your lifestyle and how is that affecting your health? And so we do blood work and things like that to test for things like, test your cortisol. I don't do a lot of hormones, but in reality, the basis for your health, and which is really related to your stress and to everything that's going on in your life, is like, what does your nutrition look like? Are you getting enough sleep? Sleep is like key with stress. If you're
So
not getting,
underrated, you guys.
if you're not getting sleep, it feels like everything is magnified. Something that is like you stub your toe and you are well rested, and you stub your toe, and if you stub your toe and you're sleep deprived, then the wall was out to get you, and the world is ending. And, you know, so like, how are you sleeping? Are you, you know, things like that, and that's also related to cortisol.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. Like, it feels cyclical. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, like you have high cortisol, so then you don't sleep as well, and because you're not sleeping as well, now you're more stressed out, and now you have more cortisol, and it's like
and if we can
ways
focus
to
on like how to get you good sleep, then the cortisol level doesn't matter as much. I mean, it's a part of the puzzle, but it's like, let's see, what does your day look like, so that we're making sure you're sleeping at night, or are there any medical reasons why you're up at night, that sort of thing. And then also exercises obviously fits in there, and relationships, community fits in there. So like if you focusing on like building a lifestyle,
like a 360 eval.
Exactly.
What are your sleep tips?
There's so many.
Sorry.
No, please. Yeah.
Well, there's so many, but it's so. I think a lot of people, when you talk about sleep, they start with like basic sleep hygiene, which is good and necessary, but it's so much more than that. So like the good sleep hygiene is like waking up at the same time every day, which is far more important than what time you go to bed. It's like getting into a good cycle. What time do you wake up every day? Then, you know, things like don't drink caffeine and get some exercise and get daylight first thing in the morning. Those are like sleep hygiene things. But then a lot of it is like keeping your bed as a place that's only used for sleep and sex. Don't be on your phone in your bed, because and don't be tossing and turning in your bed. So if you're up at night and you're tossing and turning, the best thing to do is actually get out of your bed, go sit on a couch, and you know, do something quiet. And when you're tired and you're ready to go back to sleep, go back to your bed. That way your brain associates your bed with, God bless you, with sleep, and not with the stress of tossing and turning and am I going to get enough sleep, and checking your clock and things like that. And then there's so many different things, but those are kind of the major ones. But then on top of that is just making sure there's not any medical conditions that are causing you to get lack of sleep. Do you have restless leg? Do you have sleep apnea? Yeah.
So I'm sitting here, and you guys can correct me if I'm just in denial, but I'm sitting here thinking like everything you guys are saying sounds great, but like when I think of my life, I'm just going to be a little bit vulnerable, I guess. I have 3 kids. I'm a single mom. I'm co-parenting with 2 dads. I run 2 businesses. I have a house to take care of. I don't have family to help me. And everything I have in my life, like I want more and I feel more. It's all in my life because I love it. I have my friends that I love and I want to hang out with. And so I have all these things in my life, and I do my time block, and I put my exercise in there, and I put my massages in there, then I put my kids in there. I put all this in there, and there's literally not enough time in the day. And I get 8 hours of sleep too. Like, my body just wakes up on its own as soon as I hit 8 hours. And so I get enough sleep, but I'm still like in a constant state of stress. Like it's just a nonstop, like a dull headache, constant state of stress. And it's like, okay, how do I unstress? Because everything I have is everything I want. But
Can I ask you a question? Is there a time in your life where you weren't feeling this level of stress?
Not that I can think of. No, I don't think so.
So all of your life memories, you felt this level of stress that you're feeling right now?
Yeah. Even when I think of I think to myself as a teenager, I really don't have any memories before like 14, and I think of myself as a teenager, and I think it's stress.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you want to feel instead?
The thought is like light. I want to feel light, like lighted.
I used to say that too.
Yeah.
if you could imagine like it just happened like unconscious mind, like what's one thing that if you either stopped doing it or started doing it would allow you to feel light? Have you ever felt light?
Not that I can think of. Like there's been moments, actually, there's been like moments, and those moments are when everything in my life is working out perfectly.
So then it's like digging deeper into that. Like what is that for you? What does that mean to you? When everything in my life is working perfectly, if you were to go back specifically to like one of those moments, what's different that you can control? Like what's different that you could bring into life today? There's some things that you might not be able to control. Maybe you went back to a time when you felt like you didn't have kids. Well, okay, obviously you would never take your kids away. Right? And right, like if there oftentimes will do like what we just did is like, hey, can you go back to a time where you were showing up either as your best self or where you did have moments of stress-free, like where you weren't experiencing that headache, and what was present that isn't present now? And just starting to like think, or if you really can't find that memory, it's thinking about, okay, you want to feel light, what feels heavy right now in your life?
So I used to have the moments where it was like impossible to think of like what ball I was gonna give up, because if one ball fell, it felt like every of them was gonna fall, and then I'd be like, you just don't understand. You say that, you just don't get it.
And you felt this.
Yeah, and so what was really wonderful about my life falling apart is that I actually got to see what it looked like when everything did fall apart. And like you mentioned, you have 2 businesses, 2 things, all this stuff, and you like, the truth is you are not prioritizing yourself, period. And there is a world where you can have one job and make enough money. And there is a world where like you can work out and get a massage. That world exists. But this one feels important to you, and all of the balls that you have up in the air, like their value systems. Like for me, it's like I have to, like as self-centered as this sounds, it's like I didn't believe that anyone could do it as good as I could. I didn't believe that if I didn't do it, someone would come through for me. I didn't, and then like in all fairness, I made so much more chaos because I was so attached to believing that it was me. Like, and then all reality, how much better is our life now that it's not me? How much better is like, oh my God. And it's like, and now it's laughable to think I could do all of those things I was so bad at. And then that it didn't go. And so it's like, I will tell you this, because it's a harsh truth that you attract and you create the life you know, not the one you want. And so for you to believe that there is this other life, you actually have to visit somebody with the life that you have and be around them so that you believe it's possible. And then you have to believe it's possible for you. Because I met those people, I wanted to be around them, I wanted to go work with them. I was like, oh my God, I literally quit my job, went to go work for this lady who lived in Vegas. I was like, oh my God, she's it, she has the life I want, the happy marriage, the happy children, the blah, blah, blah. And I didn't believe it was possible for me. So then I just got to punish myself by watching her great life and me not feel like it was deserved of me and try really, really fucking hard and not get it and create more of the same chaos. It wasn't until everything fell apart, and I promise you, like if tomorrow your business is shut down, no one ever wants to do another transaction with you, you'll figure out how to make money. I know it's really hard for you to picture that, but it was like one day I was no longer the #1 female loan officer in America. That's what my title was. I was the #1 female loan officer in all of the country. And then one day I quit my job and I no longer was that. And then I no longer won any awards. And then I wasn't in the top 3 of my company. I was in the top, like, I don't know. I don't even know if I made the list. Like, everything was gone. And it was like, okay, well, I'm still me. My kids still love me. Like, I still have friends. Like, I didn't get kicked off the internet. Like, it was like and then all of a sudden, these balls that just seem like they're just impossible to let go. You're like, why was I holding on so tight to that miserable life that you've made yourself a prisoner in?
so I don't feel that negatively.
Okay.
The way that you're
Do you
speaking,
feel happy
I
about
enjoy
it?
Yes, I enjoy it.
Okay, well then it's serving you. Then why do you want to change?
Because I'm like this constant state of stress.
Then are you
Is
happy?
it because of
Yes.
overwhelm, because of too much to do, or is it, what do you feel like the stress is coming from?
I guess just I'm not good enough
Yes.
at everything that I want to be. I guess, and the root is my the kids. I'm not good enough with the kids.
And the 2 jobs.
So
And the not prioritize. Because let me tell you this, because you sound just like me a year ago. I'm happy. Did you hear that? But I don't feel bad about this. I just described the world's most happiest, fulfilled life that you want to stay attached to. I want to challenge you, because I love you to death, and I know you personally, that you can't be stressed, not sleeping, not taking care of yourself, last on your list, and be happy at the same time.
So that's what I was trying to ask you, is if I could do all that and not be stressed. But I guess not.
Well, maybe there's a world that exists where you could put yourself last and not take care of yourself and feel nothing. Where you feel numb. I just think that there's a wonderful life where you feel super hot and you're going out and you're having lots of fun and you're having dinner with your family and you're making lots of money and you just feel so happy.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think you just have to be open to digging deeper because you mentioned
That's
the
what I was
roots, the
hoping
kids, the roots deeper than the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and then once you do find the root, and if you in releasing, letting it go, learning, if that is the lifestyle for you, and the headache goes away, and you don't feel stressed, none of us can tell you what the right lifestyle is, right? And at the end of the day, based on what you just said, right, and I'm stressed, so it's just finding the coach, kind of going back to the question you asked, right? Finding the person, whether it be a mentor, a coach, a therapist, a doctor, who can I sit down with that if I'm ready to truly unpack, sit down and unpack with somebody and go from there.
I know. You gotta be open.
I just want to add something. So I've been so Lizzie's been my business coach since start of the year-ish? Okay.
She's doing amazing, by the way.
So prior to that, I had very similar stories, lots of high intensity performance, and some destiny in my mind of switching careers every 10 years, fitting the millennial dream. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I had, questionable parents. They were good to me, love me, but they're also very abusive. Just all the things that we could deal with. And when I met Lizzie, I sounded very much like you. And I had everything figured out. I already knew all these things, as most of us do, because it's all information that's everywhere. And it wasn't until I just did the simple decision to let go of the control and literally just let Lizzie be my boss. Because I have no boss. I'm a solo agent. This is exactly the life I want. I don't want a boss. I barely want to be someone else's boss anymore. But I decided, okay, what's the worst that can happen if I listen to her and start waking up earlier than I want to? And then really it wasn't anything bad. It was just my inconveniences. So now I can't help but wake up at 4 something and go back to bed till 5 something, then I wake up. But I guess the shift was instead of thinking of all the reasons, digging deep, doing a bunch of different tactics, all I did was a simple action, which was just do the to-do. So the start of the to-do was wake up earlier. Then a few months later, all of us decided we needed more, and so then it was okay, we're gonna do 5 goals here of personal, 5 goals here of business. It was largely based on Lizzie's reading of Atomic Habits. I had read that in the past, so it was helpful for me. I like to reframe it again. And so then it turned into habit stacking. And then what happens though is the reality is that as you do these little tweaks, your body gets healthier, you start craving different things food and actions of your body. And so the headaches start to go away, different things, or you start putting your phone away because that's not part of your value goals in the morning. And this is a huge stress cause right here. All day long we're on it for our business, we have to be. So those little things, instead of spending so much time trying to find it all and explain it to myself, I just let go and just follow the actions. And now it just seems so logical, and I don't know, I'm not really missing anything. getting pretty close to just feeling pretty content and like that just like light feeling, and I am not a light feeling person. And I think the biggest test is that there's just like a few smaller sources of true stress in my life that I can't control, and I have been for so long trying to control them, but like now when those little things have to come up, I'm so much more like, okay, well, whatever. And like, that's just not, that's never been me. But now it is, because I just feel much more like grounded. But it really truly is just listening, like not getting too far deep in it and just listening to like these kind of tips. And just day one, what's the next thing? Tomorrow, if it's you have to wake up earlier, then just start doing that. Like just one day. Like
When
just
we're moms, we
yeah.
have to wake up earlier to create any kind of space for ourselves
Yes.
where our kids are sleeping. So
Yeah.
this is why the strategy is wake up earlier.
Yeah.
And so what are the top 5?
For me, so okay, it's basically like I wake up at a set time, I journal, I do exercise movement. For me personally, I usually have like a bigger workout later in the day, just because that's what my life dictates. But I always stretch and do like some yoga poses and get my breathing going for the day, just like a normal breath. Like I had caught a point in myself where I just wasn't breathing all the time. I think that was making me unhealthy for months. I just had this shallow, because I was so consumed with everything else, I wasn't even thinking to like breathe. And I wouldn't even have known that had I not set this disciplined routine of like, oh, I've noticed I'm breathing so much better all the time. Like, what can I be? Oh, it's because literally every morning I wake up and I'm like doing breath and yoga. So like that's just those things. So wake up, the journal, the breath and yoga, the kids then go to school, and then I'll have like actual workout, reading time to myself, and breakfast, get ready for the day. So I don't really start my work day till 9. I barely, for the most part, barely look at like emails, nothing until like 9 a.m. every day. So
Just the simple shift, and then she's like,
I'm still very busy too. I'm not like, my business is not suffering at all. So I figured it out, I guess. Yeah. It's all because Lizzie.
oh, yeah. Let's not create another loop for me. Just kidding.
I will validate you.
Guys, this is our Wellness Wednesday. If you guys did find value in today, it would be super awesome if you wouldn't mind sharing it on social so that we can invite more women into this conversation and maybe have Kelly want to do another one. Kelly's face like, nope, I'm just kidding. Okay, thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you guys for sharing your time and your wonderful energy.
Thank you for bringing out the inner woman in me.